What's going on, guys? Welcome to the Invested in Hockey podcast. Today is Wednesday, March 5th, and I'm joined with two regular guests. I'll let you guys introduce yourselves.
Andrew Murray.
Landon Moss.
And today, unfortunately, we're without Anthony Santini, one of our hosts today. That's okay. We're going to get right into some trade deadline talk. First, I'll congratulate Landon. He just took on a big coaching position for the summer, big lacrosse position. So, way to go, Lando. And I know that Murray's been busy. On the ice and off the ice, doing lots of coaching as well, and lots of skill development out there. So glad the boys are busy, and let's get into this deadline talk. What do you guys think of this last week so far?
I think it's been pretty cool. I mean, there's not like the Seth Jones trade was probably the biggest one, but I feel like there's going to be at least one major blockbuster incoming. I'm interested to see with Ranton. We'll get to that. Like go team by team, but a very exciting week here for the NHL.
Yeah, I was pretty amped up to see the Seth Jones trade because I know he's looking to get out for a while there. I think it was a pretty good deal for Florida specifically, just because they're looking for a top four D man to kind of solidify themselves for a second cup run. And at the same time, I think it's a win-win. I don't think you can complain if you're Columbus either there, and you get some picks and you get Spencer Knight or Chicago, sorry, Columbus. I'm thinking about his old team. If you're Chicago and you get Spencer Knight, who I think led one goal in his debut, so good things to come in Chicago. Hopefully, help out Connor Bedard, who is struggling per usual, and we'll see how that goes.
Pretty crazy. I mean, I'll also give a bit of a Um, I don't know what you want to call it, a heat check to Murray there, but I called Murray the day of the trade and I said, "Oh, so do you think Knight like can get the dub tonight?" And he's like, "Oh, no shot, man. Like, nah, they're not gonna win." And I'm like, "Oh, they're playing LA. Like, there's a chance." And yeah, Knight showed up. So I
Did you
mean,
see the shots in that game? That was pretty bad. Like you're not going to win getting outshot by double like every night. Like what are the shots? Like I swear it was like 44 to like 20. Like
yeah,
I don't even know if they had 20 shots. Bad.
yeah, I was more impressed that Bedard stayed off the score sheet and they scored five. So I mean, I was a little interested there to see what was happening. But I don't know, they're getting some production. I mean, I'm also excited for Alex Vlasic for the opportunity he's getting for Chicago, finally kind of being like the number one guy, even though there's not too much competition. But anyways, we'll get to our 31 teams, which means we get to start with a bit of a hot team in the Anaheim Ducks. So I'll let you guys kind of give your quick stance on that.
Um, I still consider this team to be a seller. I know they've been on a kind of a heater, but when you look at the actual roster, I'm not too sure how far they're down in the standings. Yeah, they're 500, so at this point, like that's not really a playoff contending team. Um, One guy that I think that they should let go is their goaltender, John Gibson. I know there's some teams around the NHL that could be using a goalie. He's like a mediocre number one, but I think it's Lucas Dostal's net now, and they need to give it up. Uh, but they also have some young pieces that they should hang on to and not trade right now to make a push or anything. That's my opinion.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think their only trade asset right now is John Gibson and maybe Trevor Zegras, just because I don't believe in Trevor Zegras. I think those are two guys that they should probably dish out. Other than that, keep your young core going. Not much to say about Anaheim.
I mean, I'm with you there until you said you don't believe in him. I believe in him, and I think that's why he'll draw trade traction. I think that Gigas could contribute somewhere else, but I also think that on Anaheim he'll remain a steady asset. I think he had a slow start for the last two seasons now, but he does stuff out there, whether it's a big hit to the head, or getting on the stat sheet, or if it's maybe an assist every few games. He does something. So I still see a little potential there, but I'm also just a little optimistic with Zegras. But agreed, sellers for sure. We'll move into the Boston Bruins next.
So it's obvious what they've been doing. Obviously, they got rid of Trent Frederick, which shows they're just going to sell this year. Um, it's tough. I feel like your only untouchables in that team should be Pasta, McAvoy, obviously, and then I wouldn't trade Marchand just yet. Obviously, he's injured right now, but I still would, like we discussed last episode, you gotta keep him. Probably you keep Lohrei and Swayman. Everyone else, I think, is on the table. To be honest, like Lindholm's gonna be hard to trade. You got to keep him. But one guy I think they should look to try and get out of his deal early is Nikita Zadorov because He has been pretty brutal for them this year, and I actually thought he'd be a perfect fit with the big bad bees, but guys like Charlie Coyle and all these other guys, they could be out the door as well. So we'll see what happens with them.
Yeah, I think for the Bees, like I've been saying for 2 years since Bergeron retired, after their President's Trophy win and you lose first round of the playoffs, I think it's time to sell. They got an old team. I don't think that any of their signings made a huge difference this offseason. And I'm a Beast fan. I think it's just time to strip it. You keep Marchand for his leadership and loyalty to the Bruins over the last 10, 15 years. Keep Pasta, keep McAvoy, and that's about it. Sell anybody you can, get as many picks. It's time to rebuild.
Yeah, I was happy with that second and fourth in return, but yeah, it's really it's a interesting spot they're in, and you know what, with the way other teams are outplaying them, I think it's the only right choice. Even though you still have 20 games to go, 40 points up for grabs. Although it's a lot, it's going to be a tough deadline. Might be a little quieter than the past few years because they've been busy, and so a little sad to see. But we'll go up to Buffalo, where the Sabres they had a big game last night. I'll let you guys start with them.
I think they need to. They're obviously last in the East. I think everyone on their team should be on the market except for Darlene and Tage. That includes Dylan Cousins. Their number one address is their decor. I think Owen Power needs to go. He's been disappointing, but it doesn't make sense to have Owen Power, Rasmus Dahlin, and Bowen Byram on the same team. The three guys that pretty much do the same thing. I know Owen Power is supposed to be a little bit more defensive, but he hasn't shown that. But they got to change something. I mean, how many years in a row has this team just been near the basement of the league? They had that one fluke run with Eichel, and then they got rid of Eichel. That was their biggest mistake, not letting him get his own surgery. So, I mean, ownership's under a lot of pressure, but just looking at the roster, it's almost sickening how bad it is, and they got to do something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know what you do with Buffalo. They're still like a young team, and it's like, how long can you develop for until you're kind of done? I think the one move that they could make is trading Alex Tuck. If anything, I don't know if they will. I wouldn't trade away Dylan Cousins unless you got a star in return. I think Dylan Cousins could be the next one that Buffalo trades away and does really well on the new team that Buffalo seems to always do with Sam Reinhart, with a couple other guys that boost as soon as they leave Buffalo. I keep Dylan Cousins, let him develop and play with Tage, who's actually had a pretty good season goal scoring wise. And then try to develop guys like Yuri Kulik and a couple other of these young guys who seem to be getting better this season at least, which is a positive in all the darkness that is the Sabres.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No, darkness for sure. I mean, Tage did hit 30. That was nice. Like you said, to see him kind of thriving despite a little bit of injury trouble. We'll go on to the Calgary Flames here, and I'll give a shout out to Landon for his Dustin Wolf. I want to say either pickup or draft steal. I don't remember, but you can get into that and explain where the Flames are at.
Yeah, the Flames. I was lucky enough to pick up Dustin Wolf off the waiver wire about 2 weeks into the season. He's been pretty good. I think he's about a 917 save percentage this season. Just cracked the 20 win mark. So he's been really good this season for the Flames. One of the only reasons they're actually fighting for a playoff spot. They need some more top end scoring. It's as simple as that. It's either they got to make a decision. I think whether they want to trade Nazem Kadri or not. Just because they traded for Farabee and Frost, I don't think they will. I think they're going to try to make a little bit of a push. But they need more from their top end. They need more from Jonathan Huberdeau, 100-point guy 3 seasons ago. Ever since he got to Calgary, he's playing like poopy pants. So we need Huberdeau to step up at some point, be somewhat of a point per game player, and drive some offense for them. They had that. I think they'd actually be a solid playoff team because their back end's pretty good with Uyghur, Rasmus Anderson, a couple other guys like Ball and Bean.
I completely agree with Landon there. I don't think they. I feel like Nazem Kadri is really their most attractive piece, but I don't think they'll trade him. If anything, I think they'll make like a few more minor additions, like a Farabee, like they did recently, because they're in the last playoff spot right now. So you can't really be selling at that point. You got to try and at least make a push, but they're not going to be all in at the same time. So we'll see
Yeah,
what
I
they
think
do.
the depth is there, but again, just the top end scoring is not. And my eyes, yeah, you can't really do too much. But you do have a nice back end, especially with right hand shots. Pretty stacked up there. So next up, we'll go to the Carolina Hurricanes, who have been busy all season, and I'll say inconsistent all season too. But yeah,
I'll go here. This is one of the most interesting teams just because of Mikko Rantanen. It doesn't seem like he's going to resign. So it's kind of tricky because you gave up Nichas, who's a really good young player, and he's thriving right now in Colorado. But it's also like the risk you took. Like you knew this would be the position. You didn't think maybe they thought that Rantanen would just sign right away, but that's not been the case. And if they can get a good enough piece, I think that they would chip him off if the Heat are contending. But we'll see what happens. But at the same time, you could also keep him and try and go on a run. So it'll be interesting what Carolina does. They have a couple big decisions to make.
I think Miko's looked a little bit better in recent games, but he still doesn't look like he like cares to play for their team for some reason. So if I'm Carolina, you kind of got to gauge his effort the next couple. I guess the trade deadline's in 2, 3 days here, so you can't really gauge it anymore. I think if I was Carolina, I'm keeping him. You're probably not going to get a player that has the ceiling that he does back, and because you give up Nikas, I think you just got to push your chips all in, maybe trade for another piece, another scoring forward, like maybe a Brock Besser from Vancouver, who's a UFA. Try
Oh
to
yeah.
get one more scoring piece and push all in.
I like that. Again, Besser's available, total guy who you could use as a right shot because, Jarvis and Roslovic, as good as they've been, they aren't really that scoring touch. They're more the other aspects of offense, right? So we'll go into Chicago here, a team that clearly the deadline's not that important for them, but they've been buzzing with after the Seth Jones trade. So
Yeah, I'll keep it short and sweet. I mean, nothing really. This roster is pretty terrible. I think the only guy really, Ryan Donato, I've heard some buzz around. Other than that, like no one's calling about Pat Maroon, no one's calling about Craig Smith. Like we'll see, we'll see what happens. But they got to find a way to get Bedsy some help going forward, whether that's picks or players that are ready to play now. He can't be playing with Frank Nazar and Colton Dak on his wing right now. You know what I mean?
well said.
Yeah, it's a tough go for Chicago. There's some news around either Donato, who I should think they should trade, or there was some news around Connor Murphy. I don't think you trade Connor Murphy. He's a pretty good younger defenseman. He's not too old. He can kind of lead the room. I know he's a leader on the defensive core there, so I just keep him and just keep trying to draft and get some young guys around Connor Bedard there. I don't think there's much to do though.
Yeah, and we're gonna go into the Blue Jackets shortly, but a guy I thought really could fit the Blue Jackets roster with the deadline push is Ryan Donato. I thought that maybe, being able to trade a second or a third for Donato, I know it might seem like a lot, but if you're Columbus, you need that bit of leverage just to make sure you make the playoffs, and I think Donato would fit them well, even though he's been passed around a little bit. Anyways, we'll go on to Colorado here. I'll let Lando start here.
I think one good guy for Colorado to get would be Brock Nelson. He's making 6 mil right now on the Isles, and I think they need a second line center. They haven't been the same since they got rid of Nazem the Dream a couple years ago after winning the Cup. Casey Middlestad's been okay, but I don't think he's filled out the second line role as much as they would like him to. And so I think getting Brock Nelson and bumping Middlestad down to the third line could really help their depth. And I mean, Nelson's like a 20, 30 goal scorer, guys. He's a solid player still, even in his old age. We know Eric and I saw his Team USA pictures and thought he was a skeleton,
Yeah.
but he's still pretty good at hockey, boys. And I think he can get the job done on the second line for a contender. I think that should be Colorado's number one trade target going into it. I don't think you get any other center because you do need some more scoring other than Nathan McKinnon in the top line. I think Brock Nelson fits in there well.
Yeah, well
Yeah,
said.
I completely agree with Landon. I think they just need to do some more work on their forward depth. Obviously, Casey Milstead, second line center right now, but then you look at that third line, it's like Jack Drury, Joel Kivranta, you got Parker Kelly, Logan O'Connor on the fourth line. So a nice second line center would be perfect. Their deadline's pretty much done. Obviously, they got Decas and they just traded for Ryan Lindgren. I forget who else in that deal, but they've done a good job addressing their defensive depth, but I feel like they can just improve it a bit more in the offensive depth now.
For sure. And that leads us into Columbus, our last C team before the Dallas Stars. So with Columbus, a team that's in a wild card spot, are they going to make the playoffs? What do they need to add?
I'd like
Um,
Eric to go and get his Kirill Marchenko take because we know you're a
yeah,
big
Eric, you go
Marchenko
first
fan
here.
recently after trading him to me in our fantasy trade deadline.
Yeah, so I mean, I had to really back up my trade there as I made a few deadline moves in our fantasy hockey league, but I was happy we got a deal done for Marchenko. A guy who, he's got the size, he's got a bit of speed there, and he has skill. So he's gonna have to really just continue that pace for Columbus without a guy like Monahan. But I'm also just really seeing Fantilli gain confidence out there, and I think that in the playoffs, he could give a team trouble if he's on that second line. Even that first line, I think they could give teams trouble. Doesn't mean they're going to win a series, but I am worried if they make the playoffs, if they were to play a team like Toronto again. We all remember the bubble, how that went. But yeah, I like Marchenko, you know that. And I mean, Werenski just hit the 20 goal mark for, I won't mention his team name in fantasy, but Murray's team there. So yeah.
Yeah, I love Werenski. I think he's just proving what he should have been this whole time. And it's kind of I think the same thing's gonna happen with Bedsy once he gets some help. I mean, hockey's such a team sport. You just need your team to be a little bit more competitive. Columbus has done a great job drafting and developing these last few years, so it's good to see them finding some success. Obviously, Marchenko's been a big part of that, but I big Matthew Olivier signing today. They showed him that they appreciate all his efforts so far. I think they could buy a little bit and try and make a push here, but we'll see what they do. They're not going to go all in, but they could add some few pieces. It's good that they're getting healthy. It'll be nice when they get Sean Monahan back. So we'll
Yeah, I
see what
mean,
happens with that.
if I was Columbus, I honestly wouldn't make a move. I think you got to owe it to the guys in the locker room. They've battled all season. They lost Johnny Gaudreau. They went down with Sean Monahan. Werenski was out for a bit. Like these guys have dealt with so many injuries. Boone Jenner just came back. So many injuries all season, and they're still in the playoff mix. So I think you just owe it to the group of guys who have played for each other so far to keep it the same. I don't think if you bring in a guy, he might bring some skill, but I don't think he's going to bring in the same heart that they're all kind of showing each other and playing for each other for. So I think you kind of keep it the same and just roll.
Yeah, well said. I think they're yeah, they haven't had many inconsistent stretches, so that's totally fair to say. We'll go on to the Dallas Stars who are I'd say rolling as well. What do you think of them at the deadline?
Wow. I mean, I love this team. Watching this team, Wyatt Johnson is so good. I heard there are actually rumblings of a potential contract extension going on there, but we'll see what happens with that. Thomas Harley, he really showed his worth at the Four Nations face-off. He's really good. He's going to be in the future of that decor. I mean, they're obviously tight in the cap right now, but they're pretty set. I mean, they can just work on their depth. Maybe get rid of Cody Ceci on that back end, find a replacement for him. But everywhere else, I see great depth offensively. Probably one of the most depth in the league on offense. But yeah, probably just on defense, they can tighten that up. And then obviously you got Andrew and Net. It's just a great team all around.
Yeah, I think the one guy I might add to this team is Scott Lawton. If you wanted to add a third liner, just bring some more grit. But I mean, it's a pretty filled team. They don't rely on one line, so I don't think they need much help. They don't need a star presence. That's not how they operate, and that's not how their team chemistry works. So
Yeah, we'll see, and we'll see if they get Sagan back. I don't know when he's kind of planning to return, but if this whole LTIR thing works out, maybe he'll be able to join them for the playoffs. I'm not sure how their cap space is, but I'm assuming it's pretty tight, so I wouldn't expect a big deadline acquisition. Next up, we got the Wings and then the Oilers. So the Wings, are they going to do anything here?
I don't think so. Not much. I mean, they're too streaky up and down. Uh, they're in the same position as they were last year. I feel like they're just going to miss out in the playoffs. They're close, but just not close enough. That's my opinion. I don't think they should do anything major.
yeah, I agree with you. I think you just keep on rolling with the guys they're playing. It's getting a little late, but don't bring in anybody. Just keep your young talent and your draft picks and use it in the future.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and one only notable notable thing I'd say is that Patty Kane will be a UFA, so I think this will be his last season in Detroit. I don't see a reason for him to um, sign there after no success with them, but we'll see if they can make a little playoff push. Next up is Edmonton, one of the most exciting teams in the league. So I'll let Lando start just because he's got the Boosh bomb now.
Uh, so I think, well, I actually have Draisaitl. Coco's got the
Drysaitel,
boosh bomb.
Drysaitel. Yep.
But man, Draisaitl's unreal, by the way. 12-game heater, about 20 points, 12 goals. He's insane. I think two guys actually that I think could really benefit this team. Of course, their cap hit is not really worth it, so they're just kind of strapped. But I think Braden Shen and Luke Shen, one of those guys would really help this team just start banging some bodies in the playoffs when you get Evander Kane back. Become a little bit more physical, would help out the decor, the bottom four of the decor, or at least the third line with Braden Shen. just make a little bit more depth for them.
That's yeah, not bad. I forgot about Kane a little bit. Do you think Kane would actually slot in the playoffs though?
I think you're silly if you don't have Evander Kane in the playoffs. He's scary to play against because he's an animal. You don't you put lunatics on the ice for a reason. It's because when guys look at them, they don't want to go in corners. They're more hesitant to get in front of the net. So those are the reasons you have lunatics on your team, and they do their job well.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, offensively, they're going to have Evander Kane and Trent Frederick you can insert. That's just really good depth. They're not going to have to do too much offensively. I think this is what they're going to roll with. They've proven that this team can get to the finals last year. I would just, yeah, like on defense, you got Ty Emberson, Donald Nurse, Brett Kulak, and John Klingberg as your bottom four. I think that needs a little bit of improvement. Looks like they're going to roll with Stuart Skinner, but I mean, they got to figure it out. I mean, they've been on a kind of a cold streak, so I don't see them doing too much more than they've already done.
Oh yeah. Now let's go to our defending champions, the Florida Panthers. Looks like they're kind of done for the deadline. I think you guys hopefully can agree with me there.
I
Yeah, I think
think
they're done for the
so,
deadline.
except the Matthews Tkachuk LTIR room could help them out a little bit if they want to do something. So we'll see if they try to do like a Vegas tactic for a 1 year rental kind of thing.
Oh yeah, we'll see. We want to give that team a little bit of a future though too. It'd be a little concerning if they give up another first or second in some sort of trade. But well said. Let's go to the LA Kings here.
Go ahead, Landon.
So I mean, LA's on a good streak. They play a defensive system. I don't think they need a lot more at the deadline. They could add maybe one more scorer, but I mean, they're all their wingers are scorers, and then they have Kopitar, Byfield, Deneau as more of their defensive-minded presences in the center position. I honestly wouldn't do much if I was LA. I think you just kind of keep it rolling. I don't see what could really help too much for them. That's going to be worth the value. Maybe bringing a guy like Rickard Raquel, kind of plays their hitting style of hockey and can also tuck a couple.
Raquel, he's nasty. Yeah, I don't know what you have to say about that, Murray.
Yeah, I mean Raquel's nasty. They're just a good overall team. Another team that's just kind of on the fence. Good that they got Doughty back. But we'll see what they do. I mean, probably a little bit of depth up front. Their centers are pretty good. Kopitar, Byfield, Deneau, like Landon said. So I think they're pretty good. I don't see them doing too much though.
Well said. Now I'm gonna let Murray start off with this next team because he's got Gus Bus in net. Let's go to the Minnesota Wild. So what do they got to do here?
I mean, I think this year is kind of going to be a wash for them. I mean, they can maybe get into the playoffs, but uh, Kaprizov injuries just killing them. And they just lost Joel Eriksson Ek. So, I mean, it's going to be tough. Those are your two of your top three forwards. Obviously, Boldy's in there, but you're not going to really go on a run without those guys. And I don't know. I don't see. I don't think they should waste any of their picks to either. Their team's doing okay without them, surprisingly. So we'll see what they do. But I just see them being steady.
Yeah, I'm with you, Murray. I think Minnesota and Montreal are both our next teams. I don't see them either of them making any moves except for
Yeah,
maybe Montreal trading away. Well, they just actually signed Jake Evans, so not even trading away him. Minnesota, they're screwed because Kaprizov's injured. You're not going to win a cup without him. And then even skipping over the third team, Nashville, to get kind of bang out three teams that aren't going to do anything at the deadline. Their only move is Luke Shen, I think. If you're not trading him away, you got to keep it rolling with how many old guys you just signed and hopefully
exactly.
retool for next year in the offseason. But I don't think the deadline's going to do much for them.
Very, yeah, very well said. While we kind of looked at the three teams there, I'll say one more thing. Stamkos had a very brutal stat the other day I looked at. So he had like a 17 or 12 game streak without a point, and then finally yesterday put out 3 points, which was nice. But I was really concerned. He was like minus 17 at the time, and that team's a disaster. Yossi's on the IR, so yeah, we'll kind of sink to the bottom there, but then hopefully come to the top. Let's go to our New Jersey Devils. Who had some bad news to them. What do you think, Murray?
Again, like this is another team we could kind of add in that mix now because of this news. It doesn't look like Jack Hughes. I mean, wow, has he ever finished a full season? The guy's just so injury prone. You got to feel bad for him. Such a great player, but kind of a soft player. I think he needs to put on some muscle in the summer. You saw against the big boys in Four Nations, he was getting tossed around a bit. So I think it's time for him to seriously get in the gym this offseason, put on some muscle, and come back next year stronger.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think the Devils, same as the other teams, kind of a wash for the trade deadline because Jack Hughes is hurt. And if he's done for the year, you're not going to win a cup. But I think that they have a lot of young talent. Keep it the same, and hopefully Hughes survives the next season in the constant mental warfare he's in with injuries.
Oh yeah. Now, is it over for the New York Islanders who are up next? Is this chance? Is there a chance at all?
Yeah, no, they're over. I mean, just Matt Barzal's injured. Even if they get in, what's the point? They're not winning anything. They're just getting a worse pick. So I feel like the right move would be to trade Brock Nelson and these expiring guys on their deals, and try and build
Islanders,
some.
the Islanders remind me of the Pittsburgh Steelers, mid, just
Yeah, just
constantly
mid,
mid. They're constantly
mid.
competing for the playoffs. They might make the playoffs every year, and they lose in the first. They're mid. They got to rebuild. It's
Yep.
time for Lou to get out. Lou needs to retire. He's losing his mind. Off to the Rangers.
Yeah, and one final question too. Would you ever consider trading Noah Dobson?
No, I would not trade my young stud defenseman. I don't.
No,
You're not
no.
going to get a replacement for him.
That's very fair. I mean, they did add D'Angelo, which didn't seem to do much. They've got Boquist, couple of just weird misfits, I would call them almost. But yeah, I don't see him making it either. Our last New York team is the Rangers, who I'm super high on, currently plus 100 to make the playoffs. But what do you think there?
Are they plus 100 now? What? I'm going to pull up their playoff points quick. I think they're going to make the playoffs, similar to a couple podcasts ago, Eric, when you said that. I was uh I was with you there, and I'm just gonna check right now, boys. If you want to talk how far they are out.
Yeah, I'm still say right now they
Oh,
lose to
they're in the second wild card spot right now. They're tied
yeah,
with
right
Detroit for
now they'd
second
be
wild
playing
card. So
Washington in the first round, who I would not want to see New York Rangers in the first round. I don't know how they're even at this point, but obviously Chesty just had a shutout the other night, played him in fantasy, not very good. But honestly, I think they just got to get in. If they get in, they have a chance to go deep. Like they just got to get in. So I don't see them
yeah, they're
doing
a
too much.
scary team.
But yeah,
Yeah,
I
again, yeah,
agree.
getting in and having giving Shesty a bit of rest with some quick starts. That's what I'd say will work. But next up, another team on the fringe, the Senators. Oh man.
Sens are
this is
making the
tough.
playoffs, boys. I think Sens are making the playoffs. It's a hot take. The
I
young
think
guys
I
are
think
starting to play well.
I think this is the first year the Senators are actually living up to their expectations. It's been disappointing the last few years, haven't been that close to the playoffs, but this year they actually have a really good shot. I don't see them doing too much. I think the big addition was Linus Allmark. He's been playing great for them. Brady Chuck, hopefully he can stay healthy. If they can just stay healthy, they have a really good shot. So I wouldn't do too much for them.
I think the one guy that I tried to go out and get if I was Ottawa quickly is Connor Murphy from the Blackhawks. Like we said, really good stay-at-home defenseman, straight defense. Ottawa's pretty good at scoring goals, not that good at playing defense for Linus Olmark. Pick up another guy who's signed for at least one more year and try to get him to stick around, but help out this year and next year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think that Allmark news is going to be big. I know Lando. I know you got some family in Ottawa, so maybe you're a little biased with your Ottawa to make the playoffs pick.
I do like the Sens. I do like the Sens.
But who knows? What we'll go do next to kind of keep chugging along is we're gonna kind of knock out the Flyers and the Penguins. If that's cool with you guys, I think that two teams that just don't have it in them to play a good 82 games. And again, too many good teams in the East to for them to make the playoffs.
I
Um,
would also add the Sharks, Kraken, and Blues to that list. I think the Blues probably the only team we can talk about right now. Braden Shen, maybe you can sell him off. But the Kraken just made their trades, Bjorkstrand and Gord. So Sharks obviously they're a young team. They're up and coming. They beat the Leafs the other night, but not much to talk about there. So maybe we can skip forward to Tampa Bay with
yeah,
their additions today.
yeah, it's a great call, Lando. Why don't
Yeah,
you get into that?
I agree with everything that you just said, Murray. I think Pittsburgh, only guy they might trade is Raquel, which we already talked about. I think the Blues, Braden Shen, which you've talked about. Tampa, I think you skip right to them because a huge trade today. They gave up two firsts and was it a second
The second,
for
yeah,
Yanni Gord and Bjorkstrand. I mean, if you're Seattle, you're very happy with that return. You get two firsts and a second, unreal draft capital. If you're Tampa, I don't think it's bad. All your guys are old at this. Like Kucherov's pretty like older, 30. Hedman's like 35 or 34. McDonough's like 36. So I
Yeah,
yeah.
mean, throw your balls at the wall. Try to win another chip with Vasi as he's playing so hot right now. He's like a top three goalie in the league again. The cat is
yeah.
back. So start to ride in that hot streak, and I like it from both teams.
Yeah. Hey, let's not forget they've got Connor Geeky if they need to throw one young guy in. He's probably their only
Yeah,
young attractive asset, but I mean
yeah.
he's like 21 and he likes to throw the body. So They've
Yeah.
had some like streaky guys too, like Gage Gonzalez playing third line, heating up. Just some interesting names, but yeah, scary team. Murray knows from his fantasy success. But how about those Leafs?
Uh, I mean, I don't think they're going to do too much just based on they don't have a first round pick this year. They don't have much picks in the future. First round next year, they have maybe they get rid of. I do think they get rid of like a Minton or a Cowan. I mean, Cowan's more risky because he obviously just played terrible at the World Juniors, and we'll see what he's going to do. But I don't believe in him personally. I think a guy like Elliot Freeman was talking about, they got to call in on Mikko Rantanen. You got to make a call. Uh, for that cap hit, like 2.5 mil or whatever it's going to be, you got to make that call and see what it would take at least.
Yeah, I agree. I think you call in a couple guys for the lead. I think it's like you got to start pushing, man. Like you got to start sending everything away. I think you either trade for Rantanen or you get some heavy hitters for your third line. You get either a Brandon Tanev, would be sick. You get a Braden Shen, would be sick. Trade for a Luke Shen reunion, would be sick. Or you get a guy like Scott Lawton. I think any of those guys would help out the Leafs in the playoffs and to
Oh
not
yeah,
get bullied.
Yeah.
I think any of those guys would be good, and their price tags aren't ridiculous.
I think Rantanen's t price tag would be too much for a rental, but obviously they wouldn't be able to do the trade and sign right away. But I do think that, I mean, you'd have to give up at least a first though, even if he's a rental, you give up like a first in Cal, and even though that's a lot, I think like the Canes have no reason getting rid of him for a playoff run either. So yeah, that's a tough call. But again, a really strong Maple Leafs team. Nyes is a big factor this year. He was not that good last year, and I think he's just their
Yeah,
their biggest
he's
improvement
taken
this year.
off.
yeah.
Let's move on to Utah quick. I don't think they're really in a spot, but what do we think there?
I think we
Utah's
could
not
put
doing
yeah.
anything.
Utah's not going to do much. Vancouver's kind of in that same spot. Like you could trade Pedersen, but they're only 2 points out of the playoffs. I think they got to try and make a run at it to get in. I think you need Pedersen to do that. You have to believe in him, even if he's been that bad. I do think you listen to offers on Pedersen, but their number one priority is getting Quinn Hughes healthy. So yeah, I feel like Utah is out of it. They're a good up and coming team. Good first year for them. Uh, but the Vancouver Canucks, I feel they're more serious to make a somewhat of a run if they can get guys like Demko and Pedersen back, like playing healthy, and Quinn Hughes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think Utah's they're kind of still at the deadline. Good young team getting better. I think Vancouver, if they don't trade Besser, then I think they kind of stick with their lineup unless they get a great offer for Pedersen, which I don't think anyone's willing to give right now with his term left on his contract. So I think you just kind of hold tight, try to get Hughes healthy for next season, try to get back to that once what they were first or second in the Pacific last year. So
Yep,
they were a
yep.
really good team. I think they can get back to that spot.
Yeah, maybe next year we can see a nice Pedersen to like Boston trade or something, man. I don't know. I'd love to see him on a team that I'm a fan of, but I don't know if they'll end up moving him. Um, I know Murray wants to probably talk about his caps in a quick second, so just to kind of highlight Vegas, I think we can admit they're in a similar spot to last year where might lock up the one seed, not have to play Edmonton right away. That would be huge. But I don't think anything's really changing for them. Murray, give us a quick minute of your time for Washington.
I think they're in a great spot. I don't think you do too much. I mean, the chemistry is so high in that locker room. I think you don't make any major changes. From line 1 to 4, I think they have some great depth. Once again, I do think you pick up the phone and call for Mikko Rantanen and see what it would take. But I love their decor. Maybe you upgrade Trevor Van Riemsdyk, but their goaltending settled. They have Dylan Strome. Ovi's playing well. Protos only had 3 goals last year, and he's on pace for like 30 something. So that's going to be crazy. But I don't think they'll do too much, but I do think they can shop around and look for a rental here and there.
Yeah, I think Washington's in a pretty good spot. They've had the resurgence of Ovi and Dylan Strome, that chemistry. Strome's like a new Backstrom the way he's dishing to Ovi. It's an unreal top line. Protest may crack 30 goals with zero power play time. He doesn't play power play 1 or 2. It's unreal what he's doing. And the resurgence of Pierre-Luc Dubois on the Caps. He cares about hockey again. And this guy's almost a point per game
Yes.
player on the second line of the Washington Capitals. It's insane. And I'm sure a couple of the teams who previously had him are kicking themselves in the nuts about it at the moment. I think one guy who could help out them would be, oh, I just had it up here. Apologies, boys. Justin Brazeau from Boston. I think they could pick up a big body as a fourth liner, start
Great
dishing some
athlete.
pain out in the playoffs. I think it would be a good pickup for them. Probably wouldn't be too expensive either.
Lets Wilson thrive more without the hitting, maybe on the power play and stuff. Yeah, that'd be huge for them. And I think we'll
Exactly.
just wrap up with our Jets quick. Good segment there on Washington, who I think is first or second in the league. But I mean, Winnipeg, are they frauds, Murray? Are they going to do anything?
Oh, they're frauds. I mean, no matter what they do, they're not getting past the second round. I mean, as you see, Connor Hellebuyck can't win big games. Um, but I mean, like if you're gonna show up with a guy like Nino Niederreiter and Mason Appleton in your team, like you're not winning. Morgan Barron, like come on, Rasmus Kupari, Vladislav Nemestikov is their second line center. I'll just throw that out there. Obviously, either's had a
Yeah,
resurgence this year, but I don't see them doing much.
I think Brock Nelson's the one guy they could get to bolster their second line scoring. Other than that, their defense is pretty solid. They play a good defensive system for Hellebuck. You have the best goalie in the world in your team, but they need some more scoring down the middle. And other than that, their bottom two lines are actually pretty good defensively. So
Yeah. Oh yeah. They're like top heavy, but again, then they have those sneaky defensemen, not just Morrissey. So I think that kind of wraps up our 32 teams. I wish we could kind of end off with some hot takes. I know we don't have the time, but we will have to do some segments that we can throw up on some nice trade deadline reels on Friday. I know tomorrow's gonna be a nice day, but I want to thank you guys again for coming on.